At Thanksgiving dinner, my mother smiled, handed my 6-year-old daughter a slice of pie, and led her to the bathroom. 10 minutes later, my sweet girl walked out sobbing, holding her precious, freshly cut hair in her hands. My parents had secretly sheared off her heritage braids because they thought her look was too untraditional for their holiday table. My husband and I didn't scream. We didn't make a scene. My lawyer begged me to file a police report and tear them apart legally right then and there. I looked him dead in the eye and said, "No, let them think they won." Everyone thought I was too weak to stand up to my wealthy family. But 4 days later, when my father opened his company email at 9 a.m., his jaw dropped. They didn't just lose their holiday host status, they lost everything. My name is Maya, and at 32 years old, I thought I'd finally learned how to navigate the cold, polished world my parents built. My father, Arthur, ran a high-end consulting firm that was all about appearances, while my mother, Evelyn, treated our family like a personal country club where she was the sole board member. Growing up, I was the black sheep simply because I preferred authenticity over their rigidly curated image. When I married my husband, Marcus, and we had our daughter, Lily, I hoped time might soften them. Lily was 6, full of life, and adored her beautiful, thick hair, which Marcus and I lovingly spent hours braiding into intricate cultural styles that made her beam with pride. But to Evelyn, anything that didn't fit her narrow definition of traditional elegance was a personal offense. For years, I tolerated my mother's passive-aggressive snorts and my father's dismissive waves. But this year was supposed to be different. Mom called 2 weeks before November, her voice dripping with uncharacteristic sweetness, begging us to come to Thanksgiving. She promised it would be a quiet, harmonious evening, a true peace offering to bring the family together. I wanted so badly to believe she had changed. I wanted my daughter to have grandparents. So, despite Marcus's soft warnings, I packed our bags and walked straight into the trap they had so carefully set. The dining room was blindingly white, from the immaculate tablecloth to the polished silver that reflected my mother's rehearsed smile. From the moment we sat down, the atmosphere felt suffocating. Dinner hadn't even been served before Evelyn cast her first glance at Lily. Her eyes locked onto my daughter's neatly parted, beaded braids, a cold sneer tugging at the edge of her lip. "Is that really how you're dressing her for holiday dinner, Maya?" Evelyn asked, setting her crystal wine glass down with a sharp clink. "It just looks so unkempt. A traditional bob would suit our family line much better." Marcus squeezed my hand under the mahogany table. "Lily loves her hair, Evelyn. We spent 3 hours on it yesterday," he said, keeping his voice carefully even. My father didn't even look up from carving the turkey. "Your mother is just thinking about the family photo, Marcus. We have standards to uphold." I swallowed my anger, focusing on Lily, who was happily swinging her legs, oblivious to the toxicity surrounding her. But Evelyn was playing a longer game. Halfway through dessert, she offered Lily a slice of apple pie, smiling warmly. "Come along, sweetheart," she cooed gently. "Let's go wash those sticky hands in the guest bathroom before we take our pictures." 10 minutes passed. Then 15. A strange, heavy dread settled in my stomach. Suddenly, the bathroom door clicked open. Lily walked into the dining room, her tiny shoulders shaking violently as tears streamed down her red cheeks. In her small, trembling hands, she held clumps of her beautifully woven hair. Evelyn stepped out behind her, holding a pair of heavy brass sewing shears, looking entirely pleased with herself. "There," Evelyn announced casually, as if she'd just pruned a rose bush. "Now she looks proper for our table." The silence in that dining room was heavier than any scream could have been. Marcus was up from his chair before Evelyn could even put the shears down, his whole body shaking with a fury I had never seen in him. But I held out a hand, stopping him. I didn't yell. I didn't hurl insults. I simply walked over, picked up my sobbing 6-year-old daughter, and gathered her severed braids from the floor. I looked my mother straight in her cold, unrepentant eyes, then turned to my father, who was calmly sipping his coffee as if nothing had happened. Without a single word, we walked out into the chilly November night and drove away. The entire ride home, Lily cried herself to sleep in the back seat, clutching her ruined hair. My heart was breaking into 1,000 sharp pieces, but beneath the grief, a cold, unyielding resolve was taking root. The next morning, I sat in the office of David Miller, a senior family attorney and longtime family acquaintance. David listened to the story, his jaw tight with outrage. "Maya, this is clear assault and destruction of property," he said, slamming a file shut on his desk. "We can file a police report today, get a restraining order, and sue them for emotional distress. We can tear them apart in court." I looked at him, my voice steady and deadly quiet.
"No, David."
"A lawsuit will take months, and they'll just hire high-priced lawyers to drag it out. I want them to pay now. Let them think they won." David leaned back, his eyebrows raised in curiosity. "If not a lawsuit, Maya, what exactly do you have in mind?" That was when I pulled out the yellowed leather folder I had retrieved from my late grandmother's safe deposit box months ago. Everyone in the family assumed my father built his boutique consulting firm from scratch using his own brilliant mind. But they were wrong. My grandmother, Eleanor, was the real force behind the wealth. When she passed away last year, her estate wasn't divided evenly. She quietly left the entirety of the family commercial trust directly to me, bypassing her son Arthur altogether. Arthur's entire corporate headquarters on Fifth Avenue, I explained, laying the financial deeds on David's desk, sits on land owned exclusively by the Eleanor Vance Trust. For the last 10 years, my father has been operating under a commercial lease that expired 2 years ago. He's been signing renewal agreements using an expired power of attorney, essentially signing my name without my knowledge. David leaned over the documents, his eyes scanning the numbers as a slow, incredulous smile spread across his face. Maya, he didn't just overstep his authority. He's been commingling corporate revenue with trust assets to keep his personal lines of credit open. If you exercise your sole trustee authority. If I exercise my authority, I finished coldly. His firm loses its lease, its primary credit line, and its legal standing to operate in that building by next week. He built his entire lavish lifestyle on a foundation I control, and he doesn't even realize I hold the keys. Over the next 72 hours, my parents acted as if nothing had happened. My mother even posted a picture-perfect recap of Thanksgiving dinner on social media, complete with photos of her table setting and a hypocritical caption about the blessing of family unity. Naturally, she left out the part where she mutilated her own granddaughter's hair. I didn't comment. I didn't block her. I just let her bask in her fragile, false reality while I quietly went to work behind the scenes. Every day, I sat in David's office as we methodically took apart my father's empire piece by piece. First, as the sole trustee of the Eleanor Vance Trust, I executed a formal notice of lease termination for his primary commercial office building. Next, we sent urgent legal notifications to the bank compliance department, officially revoking the expired power of attorney Arthur had been illegally using to access trust funds. Without that trust acting as collateral, his multi-million-dollar corporate loan was instantly thrown into default. I didn't want a noisy court battle that would drag on for years while my parents played the victim. I wanted swift, absolute accountability. Everything was set to execute simultaneously at exactly 9 a.m. on Monday morning, precisely 4 days after they sat at that dinner table and decided my daughter was beneath their standards. On Sunday night, as I tucked Lily into bed and smoothed down her short, damaged hair, I felt no guilt, only a cold, quiet clarity. My parents thought they could destroy my child's dignity and suffer zero consequences. They were about to learn that the daughter they had spent a lifetime dismissing was the one holding all the power. Monday morning arrived with a clear, crisp blue sky. At 8:55 a.m., my father pulled his shiny new Mercedes into the underground garage of his Fifth Avenue office building, completely unaware that his world was about to collapse. When he walked up to the glass entrance of his corporate suite at precisely 9 a.m., his keycard beeped red. He tried again.
Red.
Before he could raise his voice at the front desk, 2 armed security officers stepped forward alongside a city marshal, handing him a formal notice of immediate eviction for unlawful detainer and corporate trespass. At that exact second, his cell phone started buzzing uncontrollably. It was his chief financial officer, hyperventilating on the line. The bank had just frozen all corporate operating accounts after receiving certified fraud flags regarding the unauthorized use of trust collateral. Without those accounts, his firm couldn't clear payroll, and his primary international clients were automatically notified that the firm was under immediate compliance lockdown. By 9:15 a.m., my phone began ringing off the hook. First Arthur, his voice laced with pure panic, screaming that there had been a massive administrative error. Then Evelyn, her usual icy composure completely shattered as she shrieked into the receiver, asking why marshals were currently serving seizure notices on their country club membership and personal line of credit. I let them rave for 2 full minutes before I spoke, my voice deathly quiet. There is no error, Arthur. You built your life on Eleanor's trust, and you used my name to steal from it while treating my family like garbage. The lease is revoked. The funds are frozen. You have exactly 24 hours to vacate the property. Maya, please, Arthur begged, his voice cracking with a weakness I had never heard in my entire life. This will ruin us. We're your parents. And Lily is your granddaughter. I replied coldly before hanging up. Within 3 weeks, Arthur's consulting firm declared complete bankruptcy, unable to recover from the immediate loss of its office space and frozen credit lines. To cover the massive debts incurred by years of financial mismanagement, my parents were forced to sell their sprawling estate and liquidate their luxury cars. Evelyn's precious social standing completely disintegrated as news of their corporate fraud and family fallout quietly spread through their elite social circles. They were forced to downsize into a modest rented townhouse, stripped of the influence and wealth they had used as weapons for decades. As for my family, we used a small portion of the trust's legitimate distributions to fly to Chicago, visiting a master loctician who specialized in restorative hair care. Over the course of a weekend, she transformed Lily's shortened hair into the most stunning, beautiful set of feed-in braids decorated with clear glass beads that caught the sunlight whenever she danced. Seeing my daughter look into the mirror and smile with radiant, pure confidence was worth more than every penny in that trust. Standing up to family isn't easy, especially when they hold power over you for years. But protecting your children's dignity and standing your ground will always be worth the fight. What would you have done if you were in my shoes? Would you have taken down their empire or handled it differently? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories.